wave. There's a tnufa. So we said, where is this tnufa? This tnufa is you wave it up, down, and all the different directions. Sounds like the holiday of Sukkot. And by the way, they learn, I think the Gemara learns the holiday of Sukkot from this idea of tnufa that we have. Yes, the idea about a holiday of Sukkot that we wave in all different directions. Yeah. Right. And what's the idea behind this? The idea is, let's say if we'll talk about a karban, right? Let's say the shlamim, right? The Torah says about the korban shlamim. We're going to learn about it. Good morning, Jaime.
Morning, Rabbi.
Morning. Good morning. Marhaba. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming. The Gemara talks about, we're going to bring the pasuk by the shlamim, where the korban shlamim, certain parts have to be waved in all the different directions. I'm going to look at the pasuk. The pasuk here is in Vayikra, Perek Zayin, pasuk Lamed. In Vayikra, Perek Zayin, the waving takes place. We're gonna so not depends on on a specific korban shlamim. It takes place on certain korbanot. Not all offerings is waving. Only certain korbanot, and some of them. And let's say the bikurim. We're going to learn in our Gemara that the first fruits that you bring to the Kohen also there's going to be waving on the first fruits, and. On that particular morning, on the day that he comes to the Beit HaMikdash, no, the day you bring the fruits, then you bring it's part of the process. And the Gemara is going to say that both the Kohen will have his hand under the basket, and the Yisrael who's bringing the fruit will also have his hand on the basket. Let's say the Yisrael will have his hands on the higher part of up the rim of the basket that he's bringing the fruits, and the Kohen will have his hand underneath the basket. There's a whole program of this waving, exactly how it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be done right. That's not how some of the commentators explain. It's not like his hands are directly underneath the other. That one's under the other hands. One hand is on one spot of the basket. We don't do this. We don't bring the first fruits of the Kohen today. Correct. Now. The way the Sforno said, the main tufa, yeah.
I'm sorry. You say one time
morning,
the
Rabbi.
Morning. What did you say, Aaron?
You said the chidush one time on when we said the blessing on the bikurim.
Good morning. Want to say hello? Nice to meet you.
That's Reedy. She's the most important one on the call.
Okay, very good. She gets credit for all the learning. Baruch Hashem. Yes, Yaron.
I wanted to say that the when we say the psukim on the bikurim, right?
Yes.
Is to say thank you to Hashem for
the psukim on the bikurim is thank you to Hashem for the fruit.
By doing the waving north, south, east, west, like you say, what's the meaning of it?
Right, exactly.
How you say thank you to us, like
exactly what you said, Yaron. The idea of the waving is to say you're giving thank you to Hashem, and in a certain sense, as if you're giving this item to Hashem. That's how the Sforno writes. The main purpose of the waving is in order to show that I'm like giving it to Hashem. So you bring the first fruits. Why are you bringing the first fruits to the Beit HaMikdash? Because you're bringing the first fruits. Good morning, Adam. Because you came to the land of Israel. God has given you the land, and God has helped and the fruit should grow. So you want to give a gift to Hashem. So how do you give a gift to Hashem? So part of the way to give it to Hashem, but the way you give it to Hashem is by giving it. But Hashem wants it. You give it to the Kohen. Like God says, you give someone a gift. Give it to my son. So the waving accomplishes. It's like I'm going ahead. here, it's like a sign to Hashem. Where is Hashem? Up, down, all around. So therefore, so this item when I'm trying to bring to Hashem, so I go ahead. What do I do with it? This is the way I show. I show that this is that I'm giving it to Hashem. I'm recognizing Hashem by pointing to by waving to all the different directions. Muni Morris, that's how I am accomplishing this. You see, the Seforno says, let's say by the Korban Shlamim, the peace offering that you bring, you not only, there's the certain fats that are placed on the chest, the part of the chest that's given to the Kohen. There are fats that are also placed on that chest when you do the waving, right? The pasuk says that you bring the fats, go on top of the chest, and you wave it in front of Hashem. So the Sephora says the fats you're bringing on the altar. So because you're bringing on the altar, it's already pretty clear what the purpose of the fats that go into Hashem. There's certain fats that are offered, right? There's certain fats. So the waving is not mainly for the fats, even though the fats are on the deal. The waving is mainly for the items that are not going on the Mizbeach. The items that are not offered that's going on the altar, you're giving it to the Kohen himself. You're giving the Kohen, let's say, the thigh. You're giving the Kohen the chest. So that, when you give it to the Kohen, you want to show that you're really bringing it to Hashem. So therefore, the waving, that requires the waving. Similarly, the idea is that's the idea by the Bikurim, the first fruits. I have brought to my first fruits to thank God. I want to show it's like I'm giving it to Hashem. But Hashem says, give it to my boys. Give it to the Kohen. He's the one who's going to eat it. But you're giving it to me. The Kohen is like, he's eating off he's eating off it's called Meshulchan Rachmanah. The Kohen is eating off the table of Hashem, so to speak. But you're really giving it to Hashem. So I just wanted to bring out a better understanding of what all the directions. Shouldn't take long at all. Usually, by the way, most mitzvot of the Torah don't take too long. If you think about it, how long does it take to put on the tefillin? Okay, there's a mitzvah, you wear the tefillin the whole day, they used to wear it. How long does it take? You put on the tefillin to say the Shema Yisrael, to say the Kriya Shema. How long do mitzvahs generally take? Usually it doesn't take too long to stay. But okay,
no, but they were saying Shechianu.
What'd you say?
They were saying Shechianu on it.
I don't know that I don't know that they said a Shechianu on such a there's a certain bracha that we find that when on a korban that you would eat, there would be bracha like we find by the Pesach and so on and so forth. The special bracha on the offering. Okay, so that's a little bit appreciation of the Tnufas. And now that we got that backdrop, now we're going to learn back to the Gemara. We are on the Gemara on 18b, Yudchet Amud Beis. We were discussing Waman Tana de Poleg Aled Rabbi Eliezer. We are 18b, and the art scroll is 18b4. And I hope we recognize everybody that's on and everybody that's here. Okay. Uman Tana de Poleg Aled de Rabbi Yehuda. Who is the Tana that argues on Rabbi Yehuda? Now, meaning to say, Rabbi Yehuda said that the placing of the Bikurim, and that also explains why you put it in front of the Mizbeach. Why is there a law that you place the fruits in front of the altar? Right, Mr. Haven? Then you pick it up from the altar, from that spot. When you bring it, you put it down and you pick it up. Why are you putting it in front of the altar? Because that shows you like you're bringing it to Hashem. But then the Kohen eventually gets it. It's one of those things that God says, he gives certain gifts to the Kohen. He wants the Kohen to receive it, but it belongs to Hashem. It's like, I presume that's similar idea of most of the presents most of the presents you give to the Kohen. You give truma to the Kohen, right? You give, you go ahead and your crop grew, and you're going to have to give a certain percentage to the Kohen. Who are you really giving it to? You're giving it to Hashem. He gave you the land, and you're showing your recognition, acknowledging. But Hashem says, I want you to give it to the Kohen. Let him eat it on the dead. Let him get it. You're acknowledging. So now we said there's that there's an argument between Rabbi Yehuda and another rabbi. Who is the rabbi that says that the hanacha, the placing of the bikurim in front of the first fruits in front of the altar is a key? And if you don't place it in front of the altar, the Kohen is not allowed to eat it. Who is the one that says that aspect, that law, is the key battery in order for the Kohen to eat it? Because remember, we had an opinion that says the main thing is the Yisrael who brings it has to say the Psukim. But now we have another rabbi that says, no, the main thing is placing in front of the altar. Who is that rabbi? Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Tanya. We learned in a Braita. Everyone have the Gemara? We're on Art Scroll 18b4, and the Gemara is about 5 lines from the bottom. The Torah says, thank you for the water. The Torah says the Kohen takes the basket from the hand of the one who brought it, of the Yisrael. Limeid ala bikurim shetu'unin tnufa. This verse, this statement, hidden in this statement is the teaching that bikurim requires tnufa. Bikurim requires waving. Where do you see from this verse that bikurim requires waving? Yesterday, the Gemara says that there was a different rabbi that said that the second time the Torah said the v'heniach, he says v'hin chato, that you have to wave it. He says that the second v'heniach is referring to waving. This rabbi says no. The Torah says the word heniach twice because you have to place it. That's how he learns. You must place it. If you don't place it in front of the Mizbeach, welcome back to Yehuda. If you don't place it in front of the Mizbeach, it's ma'akev. You will not be able to eat it. So how does he know? Yehuda just came back from the Holy Land, so we welcome him back. Very happy that he's back. How do we know that there's a waving by the bikurim? He has a different pasuk. From this pasuk that says the Kohen takes the basket, Simon, from the hand of the Yisrael, that is the teaching of waving. Where does taking a basket from the one who brings the food, the fruit, where does taking the basket, right, Mark? Where does that indicate tnufa? Where does that indicate waving? So the Gemara says, my taima the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. What is the reason? Where does he see this idea of waving from this pasuk? So the Gemara says he has a gzeira shaveh. There's a word that's used over here, and that the same word is used somewhere else in the Torah, and we apply the law that's written over there to over here. That's called the gzeira shaveh. When the Torah writes a similar word in 2 different cases, and the Torah sometimes writes the same word in that same case, in different cases, to teach us certain law that should apply by both cases. We cannot on our own, good morning, Rabbi, good to see you. We cannot on our own create our own gzeira shaveh and say, the Torah says a certain word in case A, Torah says a certain word in case B. We're going to say, okay, the law that applies there applies here. That we don't say on our own. Ein adam dan gzeira shaveh ma'atzmo. This is something that you need to have a tradition from your rabbi, that your rabbi heard from his rabbi, and his rabbi heard from his rabbi, going all the way back to Sinai. That is how it works with the Gzeira Shava. Good morning, Mark. So what is the Gzeira Shava? So the Gemara says we welcome Albert that has joined to the class. The Gemara says, I'm not sure which Albert it is. Oh, Albert's son. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for joining. Thank
you for having me. Thank you.
Albert's a great addition. Welcome, Albert.
Good morning.
I think we got to thank Jaime and Mark for that, most probably. Okay.
Thank you.
We are on 18b on the bottom of the page. The article is 18b4. So the Gemara says, Ati yad yad mishlamim. We learn yad yad, the same word that's written by these two cases, and we apply the law that's written here to over here. Shiv hachat, the Gemara now explains. It says over here, by bikurim, by the first fruits that you need to go ahead and give to the Kohen, it says, V'lokach haKohen hateneh miyadecha. The Torah says the Kohen takes the basket from the hand of the person who brings the fruits. Uksiv, and then there's another pasuk that says, Yadav to the Yena ate Ishe Hashem. His hands shall bring those items that are brought on the Mizbeach, meaning, let's say, the fats, certain fats that are brought on the Mizbeach, and it's brought by his hand, Lahanif, the pasuk says, for a purpose of Tenufa. The Torah talks about, good morning, Mr. Silverman. The Torah talks about when it uses the word the hand, it refers to, he uses his hands to bring forth the certain parts of the animal for the purpose of waving. So the Gemara says, so we say, Ma kan haKohen, just like over there by Bikurim, the Kohen is the one who's the pasuk. Who is the one who says the focus of the pasuk is v'lokach haKohen hateneh miyadecha. The Kohen is the one who, when the Torah talks about the hand, using his hands in this process, which we say is connected to waving, the focus is the Kohen. V'lokach haKohen hateneh miyadecha. He's taking the fruits. So Makan Kohen, just like over here by Bikurim, the first fruits, it's the Kohen who's doing the waving. So Af Lahalan, so too when the Shlamim, when the Torah talks about the hand making a move, it's the hand of the Kohen. It's the Kohen that goes ahead and does the waving. This is the third pasuk.
One again. Let's just recap.
Yes. There are three psukim, as Mark points out. There's one pasuk, v'heniach. It says, henicha lefnei mizbach. You place the first fruits in front of the mizbeach. There's another pasuk that says, v'hinachto, in front of the mizbeach. And this is the third pasuk. What do you say?
Put it in front.
Which one opinion says both psukim mean to put it in front of the altar, and the Torah repeats the idea of placing in front of the altar in order to emphasize that this has to be done. If this is not done, you can't eat it. It's forbidden for the Kohen. That's one opinion. However, now
The second opinion is that the repeat verse is not for putting it in.
right, the second opinion is another opinion that the repeat of the verse, it's not repeating the verse. He has a different translation of the verse, that the actual second verse that says Vihi Nachto is referring to waving. He translates it as waving. And therefore this, right, according to him, this verse is not about waving. He most probably has no tradition that this refers to waving. He doesn't have. The verse is not. The verse is that. Right, he presented. Look at HaKohen. He did Mark. There's three verses, right?
If you're going to use the second one for waving,
What do you do with the third?
what does he do with this one?
So the answer is, Mark, Mark is asking if the rabbi holds, one of the rabbis hold that the second verse is referring to waving. So what do you do with the third verse? You don't need two verses telling me waving. That's your question. The answer is, Mark, that third verse, to say that it's coming to tell us something about anything, is not clear in the verse. Why? Meaning a lot of times the Gemara has an extra word, an extra letter, and everybody has to deal with it.
Right.
Every letter, every extra word has a purpose. But this verse of the Kohen taking the basket from your hand, there's nothing compelling in those words that's extra. It's only if you have a tradition from your rabbi that the word says the word here, yad, hand over here, and it says the word hand by Karba Shlamim. So, and you have a tradition that it's coming to teach us something. So now we have an extra verse on the table. But that rabbi said, I don't have any tradition that this word yad, the fact that it says the word hand, the Kohen takes, that's what Mr. Haber was saying. The fact that the Torah says the Kohen takes the basket from your hand, and it says the word hand by Shlamim, he has no tradition that this matches the other one, that there's any connection between this hand and that hand. Therefore, he has nothing extra. The other rabbi has a tradition. You hear what I'm saying, Mark? He has a tradition. It's not that it's something compelling. It's the obvious question in the pasuk, something extra going on here. The only way you have something extra here is if you have a Kazeh Shavah.
Rabbi,
yes, Jaime.
Is there any connection or totally separate from the fact that the Kohen takes the teneh to protect the integrity of the poor person who brings a meager donation, and that's why the Kohen takes the basket so that no one should see what's inside? Or is that totally separate?
It's a good point. Would have to be looked into if that's is that possibly the reason why the Torah created this whole thing of the basket? Maybe it's
Rebbe,
a good point.
The basket goes through a whole machloket. Haime's saying excellent, because they used to decorate the baskets with all gold and ornamentations on the animal, and then the Chachamim changed it and said you have to use a wicker basket. You can't use gold and silver and all these beautiful things because it would embarrass the other people.
Right.
So the baskets are equal, and what's inside of it protects the integrity of the person.
Right. That's a very good point.
Exactly.
Right. It could be that's part of the purpose of the basket. But it's interesting. You talk about protecting the integrity. The rabbis were concerned about the poor person. It's also interesting. The rabbis were concerned about the unknowledgeable person when it came to Bikurim. Because let's say if a guy would not know how to read Psukim, right? We said that Bikurim, one of the mitzvot, part of the process, as we said, Mr. Haber, is to reading Psukim, reading verses. But what about if you have a guy who doesn't know how to read? So how is he? So what would happen is you would say the verses to him. He would follow after you. But you know what would happen? He'd be very embarrassed. Because he says, the other guy, the learned guy comes in, he says the verses, and I need them to read it to me. I can't read it on my own. So what people started doing? They stopped bringing first fruits. The unlearned person was embarrassed to come with his first fruits because he knew I have to read Psukim. I don't know how to read it. So what they do, so they made an enactment that for everybody, we're going to read the verses to him, and he will follow after me. Just not to embarrass the guy who's not knowledgeable. That's, by the way, also has to do with Kriyat Torah. There are a lot of people, certain places, the concern of people not knowing how to read the Torah. So you have somebody who's learned, who will read the Torah all the time. Okay, let's continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara said, Malahalan Habailim. Over there, when it comes to the shlamim, it says over there that the owner, the one who brought the korban, he goes ahead and he waves the korban. He waves those certain parts. So Afkan Bailim. So we have. So now the Gemara is saying we have an interesting idea. Over here, we just said the focus by Bikurim is the Kohen to wave. That teaches us, that enlightens the law. By the shlamim, when the korban is, those parts have to be also waved by the Kohen. But we have it. But by the shlamim, the pasuk emphasizes the owner waving it. The pasuk says that the owner waves it. So therefore, we have it sounds like a contradiction. We have both the owner who's waving it. Is it the owner or is it the kohen? We have from Bikurim we learn out that the kohen is the one who waves it, and from the shlamim we learn out that the owner, the one who brings it, waves it. The Gemara says, you know what? Both are done. The waving process has both the kohen on the deal and the owner who's bringing it on the deal. So that's what both hands, all hands, all
together,
hands.
Rabbi. They did it together.
How do you like that, Simon? They do it together, but look,
like one hand on top of the other. They do it.
Yeah, but some say that actually, even though the language of the Gemara would indicate that both hands are on the other, but they say no. They're not going to. Then there'll be a chatzitza. Then there'll be someone's hand that's separating between the kohen and the basket.
Yes.
The kohen's hands will be all the way on the bottom, and the Israel will be on the side, by the rim. If you look, that's what Rashi
and that's how they did the women too. I think the women they did that with women too, so they didn't touch the women.
Okay, we have to look at. They do it.
Are they
together. There's a waving together. Rashi says in Sukkah, the owner holds the svat hatena, the edge, the top edges of the basket. If this will be the basket, right? The owner who brings the fruit will hold the edges of the basket, and the kohen will have his hand underneath the basket, and then they would go up, down, all around, all the four different directions, indicating like the kids sing that song. Up, where is it? Hashem is here.
Hashem is everywhere.
Hashem is everywhere. Up, down, right, left, all around, and that's what they're doing by the Bikurim. They're giving the fruits to who? To Hashem. Therefore, we're waving the Bikurim. That's what you do to Lulav. You go to all directions. Hashem should protect you and take away all the bad spirits, all the bad things from all the directions.
The Ninunim, Rabbi.
That's not individually. This is by the Kohen and the Israel. What do you want to say, Michael?
On Sukkot, those Ninuim, we do 18 of them.
18. But the main point, right? Okay, but the main point, Michael, over there is to get it in all directions, just like exactly like the way they did it by the Bikurim.
Okay. 6 directions.
And somebody told me that they learn out the nuyim, the wavings of the lulav from the Bikurim, from these type of things, from these wavings that the Gemara is discussing. It's directly connected.
The baskets were made. The baskets were made out of lulav. They were
very good.
Lulav.
Oh, that's another good connection. So the Gemara says. So that's what the Gemara says. Okay, Sad. How is it? How do you have this? But almost the last line, second to the bottom line. Okay, Sad. Meniach kohen yadav tachat yad yedei bailim. The Kohen's hand was underneath, but like Rashi says, not literally underneath, not directly underneath, but lower down, and umenif, and then they would wave the basket. Okay. So
Rabbi, I think Michael's cheating.
I'm not.
Okay. It's
I'll
called
tell you why. I think Michael's the Gilgul from the Kohen Gadol. The fact that he knew it was made from the Lulav, that's not fair.
Okay. Very good. Very good. We call that kosher cheating. Like I always say to some of my young students, there's something called kosher fun. There's some things that are kosher and something not kosher. I also have another line, something called kosher embarrassment. Sometimes you can embarrass someone by complimenting them. That's called kosher embarrassment, right? You like that, Adam? Okay.
That's what I did for Michael. Kohen Gadol.
Yeah. Jaime did kosher embarrassment. That's the last. But there's a lot of not kosher embarrassment that's going on in this world today. But we have to make sure only kosher. Bikurim. Now the Gemara has the following question. We're now on Yutet Amanal. We're on 19a. Mabruk, Mazel Tov, on the new dot. These are very complex and sophisticated dafim that we're learning, as you all know. Rashi translates, what's the Gemara's question here? If you look at the top Rashi in the right corner, there's a rule by Truma that a non-Kohen, if a non-Kohen eats Truma, which is given to the Kohen, he is chayav, have a great day, he's chayav mitah b'dei shamayim. The heavenly courts, they would judge him. He's liable to get death, early death, to die. As a result, it's not punishable by the court down here to give him death. There's no death penalty by the court for a non-Kohen eating truma. It's only God deals with. Maybe there's lashes down here for non-Kohen eating truma. But there's no mitah, there's no mitah b'dei shamayim. There's no mitah bezis, there's no court punishment of death. But it's a heavenly, the God deals, creates that death. What about also similarly bikurim? The first fruits that are given to the Kohen are similar to truma. In that aspect, that there's also a death b'dei shamayim. It's a high level sin that gets a death b'dei shamayim. Eating pork does not get death b'dei shamayim. Eating bikurim for a non-Kohen gets death b'dei shamayim. So the Gemara says, at which point does the first fruits have the stat that would those first fruits be liable to death? Meaning to say, the Kohen goes ahead and he's in Tel Aviv, and he's not the Kohen, the owner of the field. He separates the first fruits, and he's on his way to Jerusalem. And he's still in Tel Aviv. It's at that point, it's still not subject to that punishment of death, b'dei shamayim, for such a thing, because it didn't come close to the Beit HaMikdash area. So this opinion says he has to be entering the courtyard. The way Rashi learns, it's referring to entering the courtyard. Once it entered the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, at that point, the sanctity, that level of sanctity and holiness kicks in, that if a non-Kohen will eat it, he's subject to mitah. But until it reaches the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, it is not subject to death. Others hold, the Rambam holds, it's referring to entering the city of Jerusalem.
Walls.
Once it enters the city of Jerusalem, it's able to see the houses that are in the city. The fruit is facing the houses that are in the city. Once it enters Jerusalem, then it's already subject to this prohibition that of the non-Kohen eating this first fruits. So there's two ways how to translate. Is referring to the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, much further in, or just entering the city of Jerusalem. At that point, kicks in this prohibition that carries with it this penalty of death.
Before you enter Jerusalem, the court, is there prohibition about such a heavy punishment, or is there no prohibition?
So the language of the Gemara, we're going to see now, it sounds like it took the harika chulin. It's like non-holy. It shouldn't. But that's what. But we have to see more about it. But we'll look at the language of the Gemara now. Look at the Gemara now. Top of the page on 19a. At which point would a person be the non-Kohen be obligated this punishment for eating the first fruits, which are supposed to be eaten by the Kohen? Once it we'll go with Rashi's explanation. Once it enters the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash. Kiman, the Gemara says, whose opinion is this like? Kihaitana. We have the following. This is in conjunction, in agreement with the following opinion. Which now let's see, because remember, Rava. This is Rava Bar Ada. This is an Amora. This is a late rabbi. Separated at that point, and someone eats it, it will not be liable to this punishment. Only either bring it into the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash or bringing it in just to the city of Jerusalem. That's how the Rambam holds, just bring it to the city. And now this is a statement of Rav Ada bar Abba Rav Yitzchak. This is a late rabbi statement. The Gemara wants to know where is it? Is there an early, where did he get this from? It's a late rabbi, most probably there's some early discussion that he's basing it on. So the Gemara says he holds Kaitana, the following Tanya. The Tanya we learned in a Braita. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Bikurim shemiksatam bachutz. The first fruits that some of them are outside. According to the Rambam, means some are outside the city, some are inside the city. According to Rashi, some are outside the courtyard, some are inside the courtyard of Beit HaMikdash. Shemiksasan bechutz, miksasan bifnim. So shebechutz, the ones that are outside, here's the language. Hari kechulim l'chol devreihem. Yehuda. See what the Gemara says? It's like chulin. It's like non-holy status. Chulin is obviously if it's not holy, it will not be subject to all the punishments for eating them. It will not be but shebifnim, but the fruits that are on the inside, they have the laws of hegdish. So you have parts of the fruits are inside. The parts of fruit are outside. So the parts that are outside are like chulin. They don't have the subject of, they don't have status of holiness, and therefore will not be subject to these penalties. But the part that's inside would be subject.
Rabbi, the ones that were outside, they would adore on the animal, on the ox. They would put him on his neck and around his body, and they would make a big trumpet, a triumph going into Jerusalem with a big
Right, there's a whole
multitude.
procession. Right, beautiful. Yes, Yehuda.
So look at note number 4. It actually still is prohibited just under something else.
Okay.
When you separate,
Say it again.
once you separate, is it this, then from that moment on?
There's maybe in certain aspects, but not for this type of prohibition to kick in to have the death penalty. If you look at note 4, Yehuda's pointing out that prior to this point of bringing it to Jerusalem or to the courtyard, none of the prohibitions apply, but you still can't eat them because of there's a mitzvah. You have to bring them to the Beit HaMikdash. You separated it. You have to bring them to the Beit HaMikdash, and you have to do the process. But the don'ts of the Torah, the lo saseh of the Torah, the don'ts of the Torah that does not apply to the first fruits. But once you separate it, like Makkos was talking about the separating, then you have a mitzvah to bring it. And if you don't bring it, then you're not fulfilling your obligation of bringing it. But they would not be subject to these punishments if you would eat it, if someone else would eat it at this point.
Those foods that are outside, like ordinary foods in every
In every aspect, but it's not right. It's not in every aspect. It means in every aspect regarding any of the prohibitions, but not in the don'ts of the Torah. Okay, I want to wish everyone a great day, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Bezat Hashem. Thank you for the beautiful crowd, everybody on the screen and off the screen, and we want to thank. Want to welcome Albert to the class.
Welcome,
Rabbi, have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody.
Thank
All
you.
the
Thank
best.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Albert, we need Jojo now to come.
Okay,
Yeah,
he's tomorrow.
Albert,
We're
tell
gonna
Jojo-
bring him in. We're gonna bring him in.
We're gonna
And
get him
Albert, I was
tomorrow.
thinking. Yes, Albert, I was thinking of you. We haven't seen you recently.
I'm praying uptown most days
He
now.
find a better minyan, Rabbi. He find a better minyan.
Okay, we miss you. Mark
back.
is waiting for you.
We
Mark
miss
is waiting
you,
for you.
we
The
miss you.
benches. We need his bench is empty over there.
I'll be back.
Have a
Whatever.
great
Okay,
day, guys. Bye-bye.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you. All the best.
All right.
Pleasure having you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That.
Take care, Ralph.
Or something else that you separated
Oh, yeah.
this and you can't do anything.
Right, it's Hegman.
Bikurim a lower level than that,
Thank you.
because you can't.
Thank you, Albert. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you.